Hello and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview. This is a show where we take a look at what's coming to the current edition of the North Coast Journal. I am your host, Tanya Schrum, and we are joined by North Coast Journal's news editor, Thad Greenson, and arts and features editor, Jennifer Fumiko Cahill. Welcome to you both.
Hey, Tanya, how you doing?
Tanya.
I'm doing well, and I hope you guys are enjoying a nice rainy afternoon.
I'm in Eureka, and we just got a break in the rain, and the sun is shining through. So maybe it's coming your way too.
It did kind of look like there was a break to the south, so I guess that makes sense. Well, we have a wonderful, positive edition of the North Coast Journal to review this week, and let's get right into it. Thad, would you like to go into what's coming to this week's cover story?
Yeah, this week we have a really wonderful and I'd say uplifting story by our digital editor Kimberly Wears on changes at the Jefferson Community Center. I guess not changes at this point, but just what's going on at the Jefferson Community Center in Eureka, which is a whole lot. And I just kind of a personal note, I love this story because it's a continuation of, well, for a number of reasons, but one of them is that it's a continuation of a story that I started covering when I first started reporting news in Humboldt County way back in the early 2000s. And at that point, the story was really about community discord and angst over this abandoned property. And so back in the early 2000s, Eureka City Schools declared Jefferson School, or closed Jefferson School, and then later declared it surplus property due to declining enrollment. And the school property really went fallow for a while and was just left as kind of what became a magnet for vandalism and neighborhood groups had, kind of illicit activities, and it was just kind of a blight on the neighborhood. And this might ring some bells for some folks currently in a different section of Eureka dealing with a different former school property. But this group got really active about it, and they organized and started kind of creating an alternate vision for the city. And they decided that they wanted this property to be revitalized and kind of envisioned it as a community center. So a group of neighbors led by Heidi Benzanelli formed what's called the Westside Community Improvement Association and started lobbying the city to buy this property from Eureka City Schools. And so it was kind of a years-long effort where they raised funds to hire consultants and also just really canvassed the area to kind of get the neighborhood coalesced around this vision and really kind of active in trying to make it happen. And in 2010, they successfully lobbied the city council to agree to purchase the school site in order to kind of allow this community group to run it as a community center. Now that November, there was a big change on the city council in the election. In case folks haven't heard, elections have consequences. And one of the new council's first actions the following year was to back away from this deal. And basically, they felt like this, makeshift community group kind of didn't have the credentials to run a community center or take on a project like this. So they backed out of it. But undeterred, this group went and got a $3.3 million grant, which they used $600,000 of which to purchase the property and the other money to do kind of a whole slog of deferred maintenance and fix up the place. So fast forward a decade, and as Kim, I think, illustrates really, really well in the story, it has turned into just a really thriving community center that offers a gazillion services to all kinds of different people, everything from citizenship classes and community gardens to art programs for youth, rents out space for a variety of different classes like yoga classes and stuff like that. has a community kitchen where they both serve free meals to some 300 people every weekday, but then also has a what's the J Cafe, which is a small cafe that they use as kind of a training incubator for young folks to learn how to serve on wait staff or kitchen staff, and is also kind of a community asset where folks can drop in for a latte or a bite to eat. So just a really cool story to me of a community organizing and kind of determining what it needs and then figuring out how to get there and how to actualize a vision for a space.
It's definitely a wonderful story, and it shows how persistence can really pay off. It kind of reminds me of what they're doing in Valley West Arcata as well. I just love everybody saying, no, we're going to do it anyway. And
Mm-hmm. No, definitely a lot of parallels there for sure.
so, what are some of the other programs that have come out of this?
One of the programs that I think is the neatest, in part because of just kind of a collaborative aspect of it. But so the Jefferson Community Center folks partnered with College of the Redwoods Building and Trades program, and a similar program at Cal Poly Humboldt to kind of institute an apprenticeship program, which I think is entering its third year now. They've successfully kind of put 2 cohorts through with about half of the graduates obtaining kind of full-time employment in the constructions trades. And the program is really designed to give folks, hands-on experience working in the construction trades, while giving kind of discount labor to contractors who are willing to kind of take on apprentices and work with them and help them learn. And probably one of the most ambitious projects is still underway, but there's an old building down on 3rd Street in Eureka that used to be infamously known as the Heroin Hilton. It was a property kind of long neglected, owned by a former slumlord of Eureka, Floyd Squires, and was just an absolute neighborhood nuisance and a magnet for crime activity. And it was condemned by the city some time back. And so this apprenticeship program through the Westside, through the Jefferson Center, is now taking it on, both refurbishing it through this apprenticeship program, but with the vision of turning it into, once the construction is done, turning it into a kind of European style hostel, which it will similarly run through an apprenticeship program, teaching folks the hospitality trades. And so it's just this pattern of revitalization and kind of economic development through a really kind of ground up strategy that really kind of empowers folks to learn skills that they can take to become gainfully employed and kind of lift themselves up while really lifting up the community around them.
I just love everything about this, and I really appreciate Kim's reporting. Do you have any final thoughts before we pivot over to Jennifer?
No, I guess just that the kind of praise for what the Jefferson Center has been able to do for its immediate neighborhood is pretty universal. Kim got to catch up with Eureka Police Chief Brian Stevens, who talked about just kind of everything from the statistics of calls for service in the area going way down. But he also just said, which I thought was really telling, is you can just feel the difference walking through the neighborhood. It's something that back when he was the public works director, Miles Slattery used to say often, is that, active uses or positive uses of space really are the best way to combat kind of the negative neighborhood impacts and neighborhood blights that people associate with kind of defunct properties. And so if you can turn into something positive, if you can revitalize a property like this, not only does it kind of take away the negative, but then adds kind of this infusion of positive energy and positive uses into a neighborhood, and can really be game changing.
If I could just add to that, just one little thing on a personal note, it's really great. I've written about the J Cafe before in our food column, but having seen the years that Kim Ware put in previously at the Times Standard and then at the North Coast Journal, writing about the blight of Squires properties, I was really pleased to be able to see her report on something about bringing that into a more positive light, bringing that into a, a turnaround for a neighborhood. It's been a nice little, not an irony, but a nice little coincidence in the small world of Eureka slumlords.
Well, and I encourage everybody to check out the story, because if you haven't seen what's been going on over there, the pictures and the story really bring it into focus. And what a wonderful story. What a wonderful community effort. Well, with that, we're going to circle back to Thad for some news, but let's go over to Jennifer and talk about what's happening on the arts beat this week.
Drama. And when I say drama, I mean the good kind.
The good kind.
Not that I don't live for the messy drama, but the good kind of drama is happening a couple places. And shout out to Tiggerbouncer Custodios, who spent the weekend running around in this traumatic week that we had.
Possibly bouncing around.
We are never going to take his bounce away. Bouncing around from theater to theater to cover 2 different shows. And then I believe he's got another one this weekend. It's just theater. So if you see Tigger running past you toward a theater, just like hold out a little cup of Gatorade or something. Anyway, this week he went to a couple of shows, one of which I was like a little hesitant, not sure about, because it's a bit over my head personally, but I thought he did a great job of really opening up the possibilities of it for readers who might be a little bit intimidated. This is the Voices of a Silent Stage show at Cal Poly Humboldt. And CPH, puts on all kinds of different shows with its drama department from, every possible genre you can think of. And this one is completely silent. So there are a handful of original short pieces. And the one thing that they all have in common is that they are silent. So some of them are, he describes as using absurd slow motion violence. Some of them have people watching and spying on the action from a distance. Some of them are like silent movies. Some of them are more dance-like. And it really brings in the question of what physical theater can do without sound. And it's not exactly the same stuff that you might see at Del Arte, although certainly Del Arte, makes itself known here. But director Michael Thomas really, according to Tigger, really uses a lot of different techniques so that they're all different. And what I thought was interesting too is he said that by the time that things sort of resolve themselves in a piece, a kind of murmur of went across the audience. So people were responding to it and getting it, and that's the only sound. And it was interesting too, the costuming is sort of minimal, and he talks about all kinds of aspects of the lighting and everything else, but he was saying that, it's refreshing after, in such a turbulent time and with all the noise that we are constantly being bombarded with, to just sit in a room full of people in silence and just focus and let somebody tell you a story while everybody just shuts the hell up. And so I'm intrigued by it, and I really appreciated his insight into it to kind of help me see what I might get out of it. And then Vanya and Sonia and Masha and Spike is happening over at the Exit Theater, which if you haven't been to the Exit Theater yet, it is upstairs off the plaza, and it is a small sort of semi-experimental theater, and it's been also having a really wide variety of shows up there. And this one sounds kind of wackadoozles in the, I'm just going to read you Tigger's explanation of the plot, just a little summary, in which this pair of siblings are balancing their careers, aging, romances, relationship dreams, material possessions, and past family traumas, living together in their childhood home, which is attended by their psychic homemaker, Cassandra. And their sister Masha comes home to go to a costume party at a neighbor's, and Masha is semi-famous from appearing in a slasher movie and brought her what sounds like kind of a hot mess boyfriend Spike with her, and everything goes sideways. So we've all been at this house party, right?
Yeah, it sounds a little Royal Tenenbaums.
Yeah, the second your former roommate says that they've got a +1 and it'll be fine, you're just like, oh, here we go. But what Tigger talked about in this review is about how the actors, by the way, if you're wondering, we have Durana Banker-Gilkey, who reviews for us sometimes, is in this play. So that's right. If you are in a play, if you write for us, we will still critique you. No one is safe. But the director, Ruthie Engelke, does a great job of really drawing people out of just playing archetypes. And so these performers like Danielle Bayer and Heather Petersteiner, Christine Aguelo, Amelia Resendez, they all really push themselves, and I'm sorry, Bryce Campos, they push themselves beyond just playing the good guy and the bad guy and the crazy one, and really get into something else. And he talks about what a risky proposition that is, how much more work it takes, but the payoffs are really something. So both of these shows, wildly different. Tigger says, go and see them while you can, and it'll be worth it. You'll get something great out of it.
Absolutely. And I like the very bottom tag of upcoming shows. I'm very intrigued about Logger Love.
Dude, this is the second one. Last year, there was a Logger Love Stories, and everybody went wild for it. It is a show that takes place in the bar with people acting out scenes that occur in the bar. So you're not pretending you're at a bar, you're in a bar, and having the kinds of dramas that probably have happened at the Lager Bar. They're very loose about, based on a true story that may or may not have happened, kind of a thing. And the picture that's in the journal, by the way, it's highlighted in the calendar as well. And the picture in the journal is of a dog. Mark Larson took a picture of a dog that was in the show last year. And I am told by one of the performers, this is one of the most professional hounds that they have ever worked with.
Well, that's quite some words of encouragement there.
Yeah, I mean, go see it. It's a very limited run with a very limited audience size, so get your tickets early.
Absolutely. Get out there and get some culture. Well, with that, we're going to pivot back to another really positive story that's brought to us by our illustrious news editor. Thad, you want to fill us in on the news?
Yeah, I spent some time this week catching up with a member of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence's Eureka chapter. So we got a press release, I think late last week, kind of announcing the Trans Week of Resistance, a week of events coming up. And this came, obviously right on the heels of a presidential and national elections that were very much defined by one party with ads that really kind of demonized the trans community and, I think used them as a scare tactic and kind of an effort to divide folks and kind of guide the vote. And so I was really interested to talk to Gaiety, the organizer of the event, about whether that kind of shaped their plans for the week and what was in store, and was really interested to hear her say that did not shape their plans at all. And as Gaiety said, the trans community has really throughout history been kind of vilified and targeted, and yet has persisted and resisted. And this is an extension of that. And but got to talk to her about kind of the intentionality behind planning what is, I think, 8 days of events, which really offer different experiences and different glimpses into the trans experience and the trans community. And one of the things that Gaiety really stressed is that some years back, she kind of came to the epiphany in a conversation with a friend that so much of the public-facing events for the trans community at that point were really events of grief and remembrance and just kind of solemn affairs and really about processing trauma. And really the Trans Day of Remembrance being the primary one. And she said she really wanted to set out and change that. And so when it came to planning a week of resistance events, they really wanted to put trans joy and trans community kind of at front and center. And this week is really does that in some ways that I think are really cool. So the week starts out November 17th with an event at the Siren Song, which is called Speed Friending. So it'll be a couple hours of basically organizers or leading attendees through these quick 5-minute conversations. And so it's kind of like, a little bit like a speed dating thing, but friending instead. And it's a chance to connect with folks you don't know and learn a little bit about them in a pretty dynamic environment that sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun with kind of a social hour afterwards until the tavern closes. But she said they really wanted to put that at the front of the week of events, hoping it'll help people, everybody from members of the trans community to allies coming to be supportive, to make connections with folks maybe they don't know that will last throughout the week and kind of carry them from event to event. So that's the start of the week. Then on November 19th, there's an event at the Arcata Playhouse that's really about creating an artist space. Both to work on some things that will come into play later in the week, but also really just, she said, to create kind of a processing space, a place where folks can do something therapeutic, like create something beautiful, create art, but just have kind of an open house to talk to each other and kind of process, their lived experiences and what happened last week, which I think many of us are still processing. Then on November 20th, there's the Trans Day of Remembrance on the Plaza, which the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence hold an annual vigil there and ceremony. And then on November 23rd, there's an event that I think is really, really neat. It's called Transporting Joy. And this came about, Gaiety said that they had kind of worked internally to plan these events at the Sisters for some time and really felt like this year they wanted to open it up to the community and get kind of community input and suggestions. And have you heard of the organization Bike Party Humboldt, Tanya?
I have not. And that was one of the events that I was definitely like, hey, this sounds really fascinating.
Yeah, so there's this kind of quirky, fun group, Bike Party Humboldt, which basically plans for bikettes to meet up at different locations throughout the county in the evening with their bikes affixed with lights and all carrying portable speakers. And they spend a couple hours just biking around town and kind of having a mobile party. And so I caught up with Molly Martin, who is one of the organizers of Bike Party Humboldt, and they said that they got this call out from the sisters, and they were like, well, like organizing bike events is my jam, and so that's what we should do for Trans Week of Resistance. We should have a bike party. So that's where Transporting Joy came in. It's going to be, they're going to meet at the Old Town Gazebo in Eureka and start off there, and I think go on a 7-mile bike ride. They were very clear in saying they want not just bicycles, but folks on roller skates, roller blades, wheelchairs, anything that has wheels and moves is welcome to join. And they said that they will not leave anybody behind, so don't feel like you have to keep up, don't feel like you have to move quick or even make it through the whole 7-mile route. But they are going to do a couple of laps around Old Town, blasting music, and then hit up some local parks, it sounds like. And she said every once in a while they will stop for impromptu dance parties. So seems like it should be a lot of fun.
It sounds like a great time. And I love the idea, bring your earbuds so you can connect to everybody's music throwdown.
Your earbuds or your mobile speakers, yeah.
And don't forget the Trans Power Potluck is happening at the Jefferson Community Center's J Cafe. I think I'm bringing an eggplant thing.
Well, amazing, wonderful stories this week. I think that was the palate cleanser that we all needed for our election hangover. And that wraps up our time for this week. The current edition of the North Coast Journal is available on newsstands now. Pick up your copy today. Or, of course, you can find it online at northcoastjournal.com. My name is Tanya Schrum. Thanks for being with us and staying informed and supportive of our North Coast community.